Okay guys, so painting class. We're gonna be doing watercolor and we're just gonna do some easy peasy basic watercolors. If you really enjoy watercolor, then you can do more of this. I'm just using some paper out of my sketchbook here and I've already masked it down. If you're using regular tape, you can use Scotch tape, you can use masking tape. Stick it to your leg a couple times so that it's not as sticky, and that way when you peel it off your paper, it doesn't tear the paper up. I'm told that works. I have some table salt. I have my watercolors. I have some watercolor pencils. And then of course I've got my water and a paper towel. And I've got a fairly inexpensive set of brushes that I bought at Walmart. So, and we're gonna get started. Okay, so watercolor is a lot of hurry up and wait. So in the past, when I was learning watercolor, I was not patient enough and I didn't let my backgrounds and washes dry enough before I tried to paint over them, and it was just all bad. So first thing I'm gonna do is wet my colors a little bit so that they're ready to be used here. Get some water in there. And with watercolors, you are watering them down, hence the watercolor. A lot of you guys try to use watercolors like acrylics or tempera paints, and they're meant to be very translucent. You should not use half or all of your palette in one painting. That's not okay. If that's what's happening, you are not watering it down nearly enough. And this is just a cheapo Crayola watercolor palette that I got at Walmart. If you're not going to spend the big bucks on some, big artist set of watercolors, this actually works pretty good. And it's got a pretty good variety of colors here. So I'm not really sure what I'm going to paint yet. I think I'm going to paint a couple little, I want to do a sunset. And I want to do maybe a sunrise. And I don't know, maybe we'll do a galaxy. We'll figure it out. Okay. So I'm actually going to be using my lid to mix a lot of my colors. So I'm going to try to bend this thing down a bit so that it will stay. If you have a palette, you can actually use a palette as well. And I've got one somewhere. Okay. So I'm going to mix some of my colors in that just so you can see them a little more clearly. All right, so we are going to do wet on wet. So what we're going to do, I don't need that palette quite yet. I'm going to kind of set this off to the side here. And move this where I can, there. Okay. All right, so I am going to paint this whole area with water because we're going to do wet on wet. And I think I want to do like a sunrise early morning. So I'm going to use this kind of yellowy color here. And I'm just going to kind of drop this in. It's going to be our sunrise horizon here. Rinse my brush. Lots and lots of water. I'm going to go move some red in here. I'm just kind of blending these together here. I'm still using my big brush because wet on wet, we want this to bleed a lot. Okay, I'm gonna get my purple going here. Kind of a red violet. Lots and lots of water. I need a little bit more water. Oh my goodness. Okay. I'm just kind of working some horizontal lines here to get this in there. We want it to kind of look like clouds a little bit if we can. I'm bringing in some darker purple. Okay, and we're gonna let this dry. Okay, moving on to our next background color here. I think maybe I will do a nighttime sky over here, like a really dark sunset. So again, I'm gonna paint it with water first. So I'm gonna hit it with this really dark purpley blue. I'm gonna fade that down. Grab some more of this purple, kind of work my way up with that. Rinse my brush, get just some water, because we want this to bleed up. Now, if you've got too much and it's bleeding where you don't want it to, just dry your brush, go back in, and use that drier brush, kind of like an eraser, to sop up some of that water and pigment. Okay. I'm going to darken this blue up a bit more. I think I'm going to get a smaller brush so that I can kind of put that right where I want it. I think I'll use this one. So because it's almost nighttime, I do want to really darken it up back here. You know, if we remember, our horizon line is going to be down here at the base because we're really focusing on the sky. So the farther away from the horizon it is, the darker your sky is going to be if it's sunset. I'm going to go back to this big brush. It didn't work like I had hoped. Grab just a little bit more purple here. Just fade that up into the blue. Okay. So I'm just working with a couple of colors here. I'm still going to darken up that top edge just a little bit. I think I'm actually going to grab a little bit of black. Kind of mix it in up here in the corners. Bring that down. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry. And what do we want to do for this last one? I think I'm going to do a sunset, but I'm going to have it be where we can actually see the sun. So again, I'm going to do the top part first. So I'm just going to paint the top part with water. And I'm going to start with my lightest colors first. So I'm going to get my very brightest yellow here. And I'm not going to, I want my sun to be kind of about here. I'm just not going to paint there because I want it to stay lighter right there. It'll still bleed a little bit, but because it'll stay white in the end, I think it will really emphasize that that's the sun. Okay, I'm going to come in with some more orangey yellow. Now some red orange. Because if it's sunset, we're going to start getting those red oranges. And I'm not just doing big stripes of color. We want it to kind of blend and bleed out in different areas for now. It's actually going further than I want it right there. It's time to sop some of that up. It just kind of gives it the impression that there's some clouds there that the light is reflecting off of, and it makes it look more natural as a sky, I think. Okay, we're going to come down here and make some water. So I'm actually going to take a bit of this yellow that we used in the sky because it would be reflecting that. So we're going to leave a little bit of a whiter spot down the middle here because that's what we're lined up with. So our brightest light reflections will be directly in front of us. So we're just doing some little horizontal brush strokes here. And I'm going to use a teensy bit of that red orange. And I've left this strip right here because I want that to be our land that we're seeing. More red, just straight red. I'm gonna brighten up these. Okay, so now we're gonna let that dry. And I will come back to this in probably about 30 minutes because it's gonna have to take some time to dry. If you're as impatient as me, you can do what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go grab my hairdryer. So I will pick this back up in just a few minutes. Okay, so this is pretty well dry. And one thing I should have said before I started blow drying is make sure that you don't have any pooled water or watercolors sitting on the paper before you start blow drying, or you can actually like put runs in here. So I have a few places that I want to hit again because it dried fairly solid and didn't quite bleed like I want. So I am going to put another wash. Ow. Sorry, my chair was in my way. Okay. So I'm going to put another wash on here. You want to make sure it's completely dry before you do this again. It's going to smear all your colors that you already have. Okay. So I am going to push the top edge of this just a little bit darker with some blue. Okay. And I'm going to grab a bit more of this orange.